Hello and welcome to this episode of Microchips, and today in this video we are having a look at this HAM International Multimode II that I bought and was shown in the "What Rubbish Have I Bought Now" video. And if you watch that video you'll know that it's quite a state inside. Link in the top corner for that. Anyway, let's get started and see whether we can resurrect this old radio into some form of working condition. So, if you saw the last video, you'll know that the PLL area was a complete mess with the usual cut tracks and what have you. And also we have a cut ribbon in there, we got a few cut wires, we got the PLL in a weird socket. C11 needs changing. But yeah, we need to address this mess around this PLL chip if it's going to stand any chance of working. And somebody's desoldered those ground connections from the front board. Wonder why. Bit of work up there, but apart from that, looks in kind of okay condition. So what I've done is I put some flux on the pads, and we're just going to desolder this socket, and we're going to give the area a good clean up. There's a pad just come loose there, so that'll have to be dealt with. So we'll get this IC socket out and have a look at it. A little bit awkward, but eventually it does come. And that seems to have a wire connected to it as well. Who knows if this PLL actually works, but we'll find out later on. A bit of a crusty capacitor on the back of the VCO, so we'll change that. So I've given it a good clean up with some isopropyl alcohol and a brush. Got it as best as we could, and as you can see it's a bit of a cut track mess, but we should be able to get that working again, I reckon. So we're going to tidy it up and see whether we can join the tracks. So I've resoldered the channel change back in, and I put some bridge wires across from the channel select side. And what I've done is I put some blue solder mask on it. Unfortunately I didn't have any green solder mask, so we'll just use some blue solder mask just to cover the wires and give them a little bit of strength. So we'll cure them with the UV light. Okay, looks a little bit better even though it's blue, but as long as it works, doesn't matter. So I've took the VCO out and I've fitted one of my SMD VCOs in there, just in case this VCO's bad. I know that VCO put-in's good, so we're going to be changing it for a volt feed one anyway. And we're going to be changing C11 as a matter of course. And C11 lives right down there, right next to the 10240 crystal. Yeah, I've got another video on C11. Check that out if you're interested. I'm just going to measure it on the capacitor tester. It should be 520 picofarads, and yeah, it's a little bit out. And we'll just measure a new mylar one. And that's a little bit closer. So that's as good as, so we'll put that in. But that tantalum is definitely a bit out of spec. So I'm just going to be fitting one of my mod boards in there as a temporary situation, plus it's got a socket on the PLL, and I've reworked the rest of the tracks and moved a link to the bottom of the board. So fingers crossed this should start to work. So test point on the VCO, and we're getting a reading. It's not showing it's unlocked, because normally it's around 5.2 volts if it's unlocked. So, and changing the bands changes the VCO voltage, so that's always a good sign. But the end switch seems to be doing something funky as well. Not sure what's going on there. I'm gonna have to have a closer look at that. God knows what the previous owners have done to it. But that end switch should be the DX and local, and it seems to be doing something strange. So I've given it a wiggle about, and we get an even better VCO voltage. So I've got my tiny SA on 27415, channel 1 high band, and let's see if we can receive anything. And still nothing. So at this point I was a bit perplexed, should we say. Not sure why it wasn't receiving, because all the signs were looking towards it was receiving. And then I had a thought, my mod board is switched on. Switch the mod board off, and there we go, channel 1 high band. So that was either on -40 or UK 40 with that switch. So with the switch in the middle position, it's just acting as normal. And we have a tone. And we have reception. So it's doing something. So there's hope for this radio yet. Got nice deflection on the meter. So now I've just got to work out the transmit side. So I'm going on to channel 1 midband, and that's working. So we know high and mid are working, and I did notice there's a crystal missing as well. So you can see switching it onto high band and then flicking my mod board. Oh, 1, 2. And there's channel 1 UK FM. So 26965 from the high band position with the mod board in -40. Very nice. So it seems to be sensitive enough. So let's try transmit. So I've got the spectrum analyzer on receive. Now the power meter is showing nothing, but we are showing a small spike on the spectrum analyzer. So it thinks it's transmitting, but there's just zero power output. As you can see by the power meter, absolutely nothing. But the spectrum analyzer shows something. Shows a small trace. So it thinks it's doing something. So we just need to find out why there's no actual power output. So for one, that spectrum analyzer has actually helped in diagnosing a fault there, because we know the radio is producing a transmittable signal, it's just not producing it in any power. Now we've got this transistor bolted to a heatsink. Anybody know what that's all about? Let me know. But we have this red wire, and I think this red wire lives where that pink wire's been soldered, and I'm pretty sure that's one of the supplies to the output. So sure enough, I've reconnected the red wire to where the pink wire used to live, and now we're getting a big power output. As you can see, a healthy output. And this is because the variable resistor has gone as well. So it's running absolutely full power. But for the purposes of this test, it's fine. We've got a good two-tone pattern on the scope. We'll just check the bias voltage, and the bias voltage is a bit low, so we're going to do the resistor, and we're going to reset the bias to around about 0.7 of a volt. There's our bias voltage set correctly. There's still a nice picture on the two-tone, very nice, crossing over at the correct point. So, happy with that. That's very good. Now for a quick alignment. So we'll get the 10240 as close as we can. These variable capacitors are very twitchy, but if we just get it close enough, that'll be good enough. So you only have to breathe on it and it changes, so that's good enough. Check the 10695. It's close, but we can bring it a little bit better. We'll check the 692, and that's all good after a slight adjustment. So those frequencies are correct, well within specification. I'm checking the first harmonic up on 54 megahertz, and yeah, it's very good. There's our primary and our secondary harmonic there. So that's all working nicely. So as I was messing about with it and this dodgy switch on the front, I noticed it went into low band with this switch, but the switch must be dirty as well. So I need to investigate what that's all about. And sure enough, there's a crystal strapped on the back of the switch and what looks like a variable capacitor to drop it onto low band. So it must have had UK40 on the band select, and somebody's put a low band crystal in. So a quick listen on 555, and it seems to be receiving okay. Now I did an on-air test with one of the locals, and he said it sounded absolutely horrendous, and I had a little think about it, and I hadn't put the capacitor back on the rear of the VCO. But as you can see, it's receiving quite nicely. It's actually quite sensitive. And I've not done any of the FM mod to this because the radio's got no front for it, so it's not much use as a radio. I just bought it for spares, but it was nice to get it working. Maybe I'll find a front for it one day, who knows. So yeah, that sound on receive it sounds alright, but the local said the transmit was absolutely terrible. So I thought, right, it's time to get rid of this, because God knows what this is doing to it. Being strapped across the crystal could have caused all sorts. So we got rid of that, and it seems the bleep is switched on the front switch, but why have a capacitor the other side of the switch? I don't know. Bizarre. So we fitted a volt feed VCO to it, which has got a capacitor built in. And I did another on-air test, and he said it cleared this up, cleared it right up. It sounded absolutely perfect. So there we have this scrap Multimode 2. It's a shame really, it's a good working set now, it just needs a front. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, join the Facebook group, buy me a coffee, join Patreon. And thanks for watching. And we'll see you in the next video.